Grab a hymnal. Our Baptist history is about Peter Bilhorn. He wrote the song, "I Will Sing the Wondrous Story," there in the hymnal 468. 468, Peter Bilhorn. He was born in Mendota, Illinois. So if you know where Joliet is, one of the suburbs of Chicago, about an hour west of there is Mendota, a little town in Illinois. He was born there in 1865. When he was 8, so again, Peter Bilhorn. When he was 8, he had to leave school. His dad had died, and he had to help support the family financially. I don't know, it doesn't say how they figured this out, but somehow at work, they discovered that he had natural singing ability. You know, little boys irritate you when they're singing. It's like, be quiet and just get your work. But it's like, oh, he can actually sing. And so somehow this was discovered. And when he was 15, the family moved to Chicago, and he started using his voice in German concert halls and taverns. When he was a little bit after that, he found himself at an evangelistic meeting under evangelist George Pentecost. Peter, listening to the preaching, fell under conviction and got saved. Accompanying the evangelist was Mr. George Stebbins. Stebbins, you know, the two of them had that music connection. And he started helping Peter as a 20-year-old use his musical talents for the Lord. And so pretty soon, he became well-known in Christian circles, and his musical ministry carried him into every state of the Union, even to Great Britain and other foreign lands. Prior to 1908, he was the song leader for Billy Sunday as well. It's estimated that he wrote over 2,000 gospel hymns, and of course one of them is here, "I will sing the wondrous story of the Christ who died for me, how he left his home in glory for the cross of Calvary. Yes, I'll sing the wondrous story of the Christ who died for me. Sing it with the saints of glory, gathered by the crystal sea." He had a tremendous heart for souls. One evening, he had concluded some meetings in Wisconsin. It was a bitter, cold night, so he got back to his room, was winding down, and he felt a strange compulsion to grab his organ and hit the streets. While he was out, he saw some light shining from a basement window. He went over and knocked on the door, and these men invited him in. They were gambling. So he began to sing to the men, "Where is my wandering boy tonight?" He presented the gospel, and 6 of those men got saved that night. Another interesting story, he came across a poem in a youth magazine called Youth's Companion. It was entitled "The Bird with the Broken Wing" by Hezekiah Butterworth. It was about a bird that broke its wing and was never going to return to the splendor that it once had. For the bird with the broken pinions never soars as high again. And one of his friends said, "You need to turn that into a song." And so he did. And so he was preaching to some prisoners at the Iowa State Prison at Fort Madison. And he was wrapping things up when the chaplain said, "Can you sing us one more song?" And I didn't even think about the implications. He goes, "Oh, I do, I have one right here." And so he pulled it out and he sang it. And he thought, you know, they'll probably enjoy my voice, enjoy the poetic value of this. But one young convict jumped up and said, "Oh, chaplain, please tell me that's not true. If it is, there's no hope for us lot in here." The idea of something that's broken can't know the restoration was just kind of built into the poetry. So he actually went home real defeated, because there is restoration and there's forgiveness in the Lord Jesus. And so he thought, I need to add another stanza to that. So he wrote this, he added this, "But the soul that comes to Jesus is saved from every sin." and the heart that fully trusts him shall a crown of glory win. Then come to the dear Redeemer. He will cleanse you from every stain. By the grace he freely gives you, you shall higher soar again. So Bilhorn contacted the chaplain and said, please, I got to come back. I got to come back and tell them that it's not the end of the story. So he was 3 weeks later, he was able to come back. He apologized to the men and told them with God, spiritually, there is a restoration. And again, Brother Olson preached on that message, Second Chances, a few weeks back. That was a blessing. So he went, he apologized to the men, sang this added stanza, and thought, oh, Lord, thank you, you let me make this right. But 20 years later, in May of 1918, he was the choir director at North Shore Baptist Church in Chicago. And he was invited to sing the gospel at a military base in Illinois. On a Sunday morning at the close of the service, a tall, splendid-looking officer in a colonel's uniform came down the aisle to the platform, put out his hand and said, hello, Bilhorn. You don't remember me, but I remember you. You visited Fort Madison prison 18 years ago and sang about the bird with the broken wing. Yes, said Bilhorn, I think about it, and it brings me shame what I said. Well, the colonel said, I am the man who asked if the song was true. And when you came back weeks later and gave your testimony and sang the added stanzas, it was then that I gave my heart to Jesus. I was able to rise. I am now the colonel of a regiment of infantry preparing to go overseas. By God's grace, one can go higher and soar again. So another testimony of what God can do in a life, and just a reminder that God is still at work today, wanting to do that in lives. Again, going from, you think of those little bus kids and, and what they could become if the Lord really gets a hold of them. The Lord brought him home, took him home December of 1934.